The invitation to participate was a pretty big surprise to me, and it emanated from this global organization I'm part of called ICLEI. And ICLEI USA is one of 24 secretariat offices around the globe for ICLEI Global, which encompasses about 100 countries. And this is countries that have come together to develop methods to work with cities and counties and municipalities to develop environmental initiatives as well as climate action mitigations for our, at the ground level, which is where I'm at, the Maui County Council. But in about mid-September, I received an email from some of our global advocacy leaders from ICLEI, and the statement was that as a female leader in the Pacific Islands, yours is a voice that needs to be heard globally from Glasgow. That's a pretty heavy responsibility and honors. The introduction of the ICLEI board members who went from the USA, the first statement there that they chose to highlight was being a pioneer in renewable fuels for myself. And I think that's important because this is an industry that still is growing, that still doesn't get the recognition it needs. It may not be as sexy to drive a diesel truck as it is to drive a Tesla, but the opportunities for participation at the ground level, for this being part of the circular economy, which is a huge platform of ICLEI's, is it's immeasurable. Really, it's really the first defense that rural communities have to participate in climate mitigation and renewable energy. I was on panels where I was mentioning not just the idea of the jobs and the revenue that stays in your community and the importance of agriculture and being able to farm regeneratively, which also will sequester carbon as well as create renewable energy. I could tell it was really resonating with some of the local mayors from other countries, and especially in the poorer, more rural areas, because one of the big driving forces of electric is to replace all vehicles. Well, if you're a lower income person in a rural community with a diesel truck, it's much more burden on you to have to get rid of your truck and buy an electric vehicle than it is to just change your fuel out and put biodiesel in it, for instance. There's still diesel vehicles rolling out of the factories, so they're going to be around for 30, 40 more years. And interesting to talk about this idea and with other mayors who are, lead some of these communities and are vigorously nodding their heads saying, yes, we have that in our community. I'm really encouraged because of the reaction I got from not only fellow panelists, but from the audiences who were listening. I had several people come up to me and say, I've heard you speak 3 times now at this conference, and I want to keep in touch and I want to learn more. And then after I returned, I did get a request from one of the moderators from one of the panels to write a little more detailed blog about biodiesel and about the promise of agriculture to energy, how that plays into the circular economy, and how it also helps with the just transition in equity. Pacific Biodiesel is the poster child for the circular economy. So I feel like I've probably had more experience in this area than almost anybody I know. I mean, when you're taking a waste product, recycling and processing it into one of the hottest commodities, which is fuel, especially for diesel engines, trucks and generators and boats, and you're doing this in a way that provides jobs and keeps the revenue in the community. That's exactly what the circular economy is about. So we've been doing this for about 25 years now, and I think now we're finally getting recognized because this is what everybody really wants in the end. If you look at the real numbers, which not a whole lot of people have done, they look at what comes out of the tailpipe, but they're not looking at what goes into the front end. And with EVs and with photovoltaics, you have the batteries are the biggest promise for that form of energy, and no one's talking about the mining of cobalt and lithium. And lithium gets mined often with the same process that fracking is done. So these are harmful on the front end, but you don't see anything coming out the back end. And for biodiesel, if you look at the whole life cycle of it, it makes much more sense. That's kind of the message I think that we're missing at COP, is that It may not be sexy and it may not be as exciting, but farming for biofuels, if you can farm correctly, and the other part of the message being that it matters more how you do something than what you do. And so there's not been a way, not a single battery from any EV has ever been recycled, whereas 99% of the batteries in diesel vehicles are recycled. The lead acid is recycled, the metal in it is recycled. So delving a little bit deeper and looking at how these things are happening is so important to the end goal. Well, the first thing I want our employees and everybody to know is that there's a huge focus on multi-level collaboration. That was the biggest thing that ICLEI was focused on at the conference. And that means there's a lot of hope, because what really matters is what we do in the cities and counties and states. Because whether or not we're getting the support at the national level, we know what we're doing, we know we're making a difference every day. And the other thing is that this model is going to become increasingly more important as the rest of the state gets on board with the circular economy. And they're starting to use that language. We'll see if the action follows. But using the language is not as important as knowing what it means. And we've seen that with the word sustainability, we've seen that with the word renewable, we've seen a lot of greenwashing. So it really comes down to where the rubber meets the road, who's doing what. And we're doing it here at Pacific Biodiesel. So every one of our employees, whether they're in the accounting office or the marketing division or processing or HR, should be extremely proud of what we're doing here, because this is where we want to get to as a state. I want my grandchildren to know that you can make a difference. I think that's the biggest thing. Is one of my favorite quotes from Obama is, the best way to not be depressed is to get up and do something. And if you do a little bit, if each of us does a little bit, we are going to make a difference. If we do it together, we may not go as fast, but we'll go further.